Welcome to the Heart is Nomadic December Sagittarius season closing out 2020 Yin Yoga session. There's a little sideways view of the porch. This is a ladder our cat as well that likes to climb. And we'll be doing Yin for the side body on grief and letting go. So I have a lot of cushions with me. You might have noticed belly. You're definitely going to want a bolster or some pillow options, perhaps a couple blocks, or a blanket, whatever makes you comfortable and happy in your Yin practice. So grief and letting go. In traditional Chinese medicine, the emotions of grief or letting go are stored in the lungs and the large intestines. So we'll be following those lines today. We'll be working with postures that take us deeper into release. Per usual with this practice, I like to ask that we lightly engage, so it's not just a fully passive flop into receptivity or a restorative practice, but it is a deep dive into the self with a little bit of physical interaction to parallel what's happening within the mind. So when something ends, whether or not we are ready for it to end or it's ending in a way that we find undesirable, there's often a sense of grief, and there's always a need to release and let go. And so whether you view 2020 as like this thing that happened to you or this tragic, year of the same day over and over, or you are looking at it as a cycle of a year in your life, there is the sense and the need to release. And if you're grieving part of your year, part of your life, if that's part of the process, this practice is meant to help hold space for that in your life. So I'd like you to just start by taking a comfortable seat. And I'm actually going to start by reading us a poem. So I'll go grab the computer and directly read to you. Oftentimes we start this practice right away in the first asana because there's so much time for meditation. This whole practice is a deep meditation on the physical body, on where the mind travels, and if the breath can direct that attention. Please find a comfortable seat for this practice. Take a seat maybe up on a cushion, even if you don't need it. We'll allow ourselves to experience props but not give way into them, so that they help to deepen our experience or conversely make it possible where it might not be. Each time we come into a posture, it needs to be safe and secure, so that you know as you hold, sensations will deepen. But if you are initially safe and secure, you know your body is strong and capable and able to be in that shape, then the sensations that are arising are not dangerous, they're not harmful, and you're learning to discern when discomfort and pain, when the lines blur. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat. Let it be somewhere you can sit where the hips relax, the knees down, with a nice long spine. And take the backs of the hands to the thighs, and let the center of the palms be soft. Allow the heart to rise and the jaw to soften. Give a receptive quality to your breath, to your capacity to listen and receive. This poem is called Living in the Body by Joseph Sutton. The body is something you need in order to stay on this planet, and you only get one. No matter which one you get, it will not be satisfactory. It will not be beautiful enough. It will not be fast enough. It will not keep on for days at a time. It will pull you down into a sleepy swamp and demand apples and coffee and chocolate and sex. Body is a thing you have to carry from one day to the next. Always the same eyebrows over the same eyes, and the same skin when you look in the mirror, and the same creaky knee when you get up from the floor, and the same wrist under the watch band. The changes you make are small and costly. Better to leave it as it is. Body is a thing you have to leave eventually. You know that because you have seen others do it. Others who were once like you. Living inside their pile of bones and flesh, smiling at you, loving you, leaning in the doorway, talking to you for hours, and then one day they were gone. No forwarding address. Since grief is primarily stored in the lungs, let home fill you. Take a deep inhale. Pause at the top of the breath. Feel a light bit of tension as the lungs expand to the space behind the palms. And full exhale to let it go. The inevitable, the sad. Each pose and each shape we hold will move into slowly, not rushing the rebound or the pause between the pose. Itself integral and almost more important, a place where you reflect and receive. I'll time each pose and I'll come in and out of the screen. You might see me looking at my watch if we were to be teaching this or taking this class in person. That's because I want to keep consistency in the asana. So we'll start with Twisted Dragon. It'll be our most active pose this practice. It's a knee down pose, so you might choose to pad the knee. We'll start with the right knee down. You can take this with or without a prop, so the right knee is down, the left leg comes forward. You have several blocks that can be helpful. I like to take a block under my hand, maybe two. Since I don't have two, I'm going to use this pillow. And perhaps, depending on my flexibility, the length of my pants, this is a bolster or a pillow. I'll start here in Dragon. And Twisted Dragon is an open twist. This would be okay if you were pregnant, but a little bit difficult to show just because of the way that I'm facing. But we'll be taking the hands to prayer or the hands to the block and twisting open towards the right. So the hands might come down, or one hand might come up, or letting this arm relax. So the right arm might lift to get behind the body. If that twist is too much opening on the side body, perhaps too much release or vulnerability for this early in the practice, start by staying a bit more upright. Hands can be against a table or a chair. Allow the knee to be protected and safe. The head and the gaze to be soft, because this is a pose where you're really switching sides. We'll be taking about 3 minutes per side. If you see me or hear me move, please stay in the pose until I invite you to change shapes. I'll take a deep inhale to prepare the body, and a deep exhale to revive in a moment. Face soften, and the eyes soften. Allow there to be space and time for the exhale breath. And if the loss or grief in your life this year feels too sharp or too traumatic, instead of focusing on something that brings you deep sorrow or unbearable pain, we'll look at the reflective metaphor of the breath and study that in our capacity to breathe and let go. So as you inhale, with interest, fill the body up. And as you exhale, release. Inhale. Exhale. body up. Find the life force, the prana, and vitality that you do possess. And exhale the fullness and the courage of letting that all go. Each pose will take time for silence and stillness, where you might delve a bit more deeply into the center of yourself. Without rushing, taking 3 more of your fullest cycles of breath in pose. Do not allow the groin to soften or the chest to spill forward. Finding a depth that you choose. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Once more, inhale. Exhale. Using the strength of the arms to lift yourself back into as little movement as possible. Find a neutral shape in your body. It might be child's pose, or coming to sit back on the heels. Find your blueprint, the side-by-side connection of the legs and the arms and the eyes. And then we'll switch sides. So setting yourself up with your props, right foot forward, left leg back, patting the legs as necessary. Taking your time to get as comfortable as you need to in this pose. I'll step back. As you land and settle here in this our most physically demanding of asanas, let yourself sink in fully. As we move through our practice today, we'll discuss the importance of fully embodying and embracing grief. If or when we gloss over grief, we might notice it as pain we feel in the chest, perhaps that it is manifested in the shortness of breath. The twisting or the opening of the side of our body today to help stimulate the lung meridian where this energy lies. This energy line winds up where this meridian, up the solar plexus navel, through the diaphragm. It enters the lungs on both sides, continues out the front of the shoulders, down the arms, and ending inside of the thumbs. Notice if any of the shapes that we take today conjure up a sense of sadness or perhaps a sense of peace and release. Allow yourself to be present with either or both experiences fully. Find the slow and steady river of your breath below any contemplation, riding confidently on the inhale and the exhale. Taking 3 of your slowest, steadiest, and most contemplative breaths here. Inhale. Exhale. Taking your time to move consciously from this pose into a more neutral movement. You might sit back on the heels or take child's pose. Don't think too hard. Let it be a pose that feels comfortable for you. Our next pose will be deer. We'll start by leaning a bolster or a pillow off to the left side of the body, the left hip. Coming to sit with the sole of the left foot to touch the sole of the right, or excuse me, the top of the right thigh. And this is a slight twist over to your left. So side lying, feeling the length and the energy from the right hip all the way to the right ankle. It can feel good to have a blanket under the bottom as well. To get yourself set up, taking the arm out long, adjusting your outfit. The arm can stay down by the side if there's any injuries in the shoulder, or taking the arm overhead. This is quite a passive pose. Notice the openness in the right side body. How can you relate to this through breath? How can you relate to this through awareness? As we move through difficult phases of loss, perhaps the loss of a job or a loved one, whether health or security, go through the process of aging and experience this sense of tightness, the sadness, grief. Ironically enough, our capacity to love and to fully embrace the present moment, to live the life we were meant to, is wrapped up with and intrinsically tied to our capacity to understand, letting go, and letting be. So as you breathe here, allow yourself to draw into mind something that you are perhaps grieving, or something that you know is time to release. You can start with the metaphor of the exhale breath, or the cyclical reality of releasing this here. In control of the situation. Deeply intune to the space and fully exhale. Giving yourself 3 more breaths here. Deep and full.
Inhale. Exhale.
And after the third full cycle of your breath, and taking your time, as little movement as possible, releasing any stagnation in the thighs, finding a neutral blueprint in your body. Take time, albeit only a moment, to close the eyes and come fully into the present. And from here, we'll switch sides. So simply shifting the props to the other side of the body. We'll take the sole of the right foot to the top of the left. And as you exhale, releasing, coming on over to the opposite side. Now taking your time to get comfortable here and to become aware of the body, the shape that it's taking, the way that your breath moves. If this year has been a particularly challenging time, you're currently in a stage of climate change, of COVID, of polarization. Have you been able to live and love fully? And if not, perhaps asking yourself, have you been able to let go, to surrender fully? Planting the seeds of inquiry as to how these two might be related. Impermanence is the nature of all that takes form. And just as we hold these shapes for a finite amount of time, we hold each one with interest. So it might be a shape of ease and comfort, one that invites more relaxation. And when we go to change shape, there could be a resistance because we're enjoying this time, this shape, this space. Or it could be a yin shape that is particularly challenging for us and elicits a whole bunch of stimulus and response. And there's a sense of relief at the release of posture. And the idea of the practice is to experience both fully and equally, both the resistance and the rapture, to meet them both with your only breath and only body in the present moment. Taking, again, 3 more slow and steady breaths without resting, without rushing or resisting. And when you're ready, coming out to release. Our next pose won't require any props, but you may choose to use some, just depending on the tightness in the low back. So this one's called Little Wing, and the way that I'll get into it will be a bit different from maybe the way that you'll be getting into it if you're not pregnant. But we'll start by, if you know you have a tight or a pinchy low back, taking either a block or a bolster down around the right bottom half of your mat. In order to not lay on my mic, so I'm going to come down into the ground. I might draw my left knee in towards my chest, my ear in towards the earth. I'm going to try to not roll over the device in my pocket. But I'm rolling onto the head of my right shoulder. So I am looking for a sensation there, not a crushing or a ripping or a tearing, but we're looking to place a weight there. So this might be quite enough in your body, or you might start to roll to the right side. Now in my case, my back is starting to bother me a bit, so having this bolster under my foot makes it possible. You might take the foot all the way to the floor or even tuck under this bottom leg. But we're looking more for the sensation in the shoulder, so taking it a bit out of the low back. Let yourself land, let the jaw relax. Feel the steadiness and the security of the earth below you. Drop into the anchor of the breath as it floods through the tributaries of the body. Let the eyes stay closed. Let your body and your mind be fully present here in sensation. So if there is zero sensation on the head of the shoulder, you might try to bring the sole of one or both feet to the floor. If there is a lot of sensation in the shoulder, notice if you're resisting in any way. So if you're trying to pop out of the pose, if you're holding the pose in the mouth or in the jaw. In Buddhism, they say we suffer when we reflexively resist what is unfolding. When we embody or embrace what is unfolding, you might begin to sense the sensation of warmth, of melting around the head of the right shoulder. A release as the fascia, the skin around the joint, begins to soften a bit, begins to receive the experience, finding the steadiness of the breath. Whether this is an enjoyable shape or a challenging one for you, engaging fully in the experience that you're having, in the sensation and the relief, and the relaxation, and the resistance. Take one more of your deepest breaths here. And with contemplative control, rolling out into the stomach. Taking the arms down by the sides, turning the head to the opposite side and letting the hips shift a little left and right. Inhale, hold the breath slightly at the top when you're full. Exhale, feel the body empty out. And switching sides. So again, I'll just demo coming down to the belly. This time the gaze turns towards the left, bending the knee up towards the right. Arms come out, so the hand is in line with the wrist, is in line with the shoulder. I don't have my prop this time, but I'll demonstrate what it looks like without the prop. I'm gonna pop up onto the pads of my right finger, got my little chicken wing elbow here, and step the right leg over the left. On this side, I'm a bit more comfortable with my foot on the floor, and in the past, I've been able to take both feet to the floor, and I've needed that to elicit sensation, but I'm fine just right here. Direct the knee
the right knee slightly away from the body. You can use the right hand to drive so that you can bring more or less sensation to the left shoulder. Knowing that you can be in this shape actively or passively for the next 3 minutes. Understanding and embodying our capacity to change is integral in our spiritual development and practice. So not only in our capacity to enjoy our bodies, to advance, quote unquote, in our yoga practice, but also to deepen our spiritual life. And we use these sensations to drive us more deeply into the life that's here. Notice if the breath has become impinged or stagnant. And you use the breath to soften the jaw and the eyes. And you slowly flood the full body with the inhale and the exhale. You are using or utilizing Ujjayi pranayama. Can you soften this breath at all? Perhaps allowing the breath to release through the mouth. Letting the exhale or the release be just as long, if not longer, than the inhale. If there is deep sensation in the shoulder, can you meet it with breath? Imagining the breath diffusing and softening, removing any tightness or strain energy from the shoulder, down the arm, down the hand, all the way down to the floor, to the mat, to the earth. Turning strong sensation into a melting heart. Three more cycles of breath here in this shape. Your body, your breath, your rhythm. Go ahead and turn the head the opposite direction. It feels more comfortable taking the arms lower down by the sides. You might choose to bend the knees in towards the seat and windshield wiper the feet if that feels good. Or turning the toes and then the heels out to allow a release and relaxation of the sacrum. Take this time in this neutral and more natural shape for your physical blueprint to return to a space of homeostasis. And the next pose we'll take is butterfly. So you might sit in this one, quote unquote, easily or comfortably in a yang class. But for today, trying maybe to take a little support under the bottom and even a block or a pillow under the knees. If they connect easily or readily with the floor, go ahead and stay with that. And take this a little bit further away from the body, so it's more of a dumping, releasing. Letting the head fold forward, finding a way to shift the focus from the front body to the back body. Finding compassion here, so Karuna Salma. changing the surroundings into compassion, to focus not on one's problems.
If that doesn't feel good on the head, you might take it under the chest.
As you breathe, envisioning the breath moving up the back body, so up from the seat, from the sacrum to the space of the kidneys, to the back of the heart and the ribs, to the shoulders, to the crown of the head, and down and out the front. Expand the lungs fully and imagine them lifting from the back of the body, almost like wings in the scapula. So a bit of an exaggerated tapping into the depth of your breath in the back of your chest. Think about the inhaled breath as the cresting of a wave as it lifts into the back of the chest and the lungs. And the exhale as the wave recedes down the front of the body. And as your navel moves slightly closer to the pelvis.
Have one more minute here. The chest might come down, allowing for a softening or staying where you are. Experimentation or the revisiting in each of these poses is not meant to go quote unquote deeper. It's eliciting a different sensation, a different response, a different contemplation in the body and the mind. Taking one more long cycle of breath here. Inhale all the way into the back body. And exhale all the way out the front. Sitting slowly and removing any head support as well as any support under the hips. Hands can help bring the legs back to a neutral shape as you shake out any place that feels like it might be tight or sleeping. You might choose to come back into the hands and knees or into Adho Mukha Svanasana to release this pose, depending on where you feel sensation. So yin is all about creativity and exploration as well. But again, with a little or as little movement as possible, finding stillness and pose, and repose. You might take the left hand to the belly, the right hand to the heart, to offer both the Agni, the fire, the sweetness within you. The capacity and ability to meet each experience fully. And as you open your eyes, we'll move into half dragonfly. So more side body release and relief. Left leg extends wide-ish. Right sole of the foot comes into the inner thigh. For this variation, it can be helpful to have a block or a bolster, a space to rest the elbow. You might take the head into the hand, hands into the head. And if you can, if it's comfortable, we'll take at least 3 breaths with the right hand extended overhead.
Let the elbow flop behind the head and neck. Elbow lifts you up to help open the chest. 3 rounds of breath. There's a softness in the pelvis and the connection to the floor, and a light, expansive roll open of the chest. The heart could move a bit more readily towards the sky, inviting the right scapula to move towards the left. Using the rotation as a sense of opening to possibility, releasing any tightness in the intercostal spaces, the ribs from the hip to the waist, anything on that right side body. If this is too much for the right arm, you can let it fall by the side, or even allow it to move across the body. Part of our negativity bias as humans is a looming sense of loss. Almost like we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop and stay in this pose. So when we're grieving, there can often be a loss of connection with others, a time when we cut ourselves off. Limitation due to something along the lines of quarantine, or an internal blockage. This anticipation of unpleasantness or this anticipation of loss can drive us deeper into a cycle of despair. This can often be where people dive into the 5 stages of grief or anger. And denial being the first. So often as humans, we try to deny the negativity of our experience, to gloss over any pain or discomfort we might be feeling with, I'm fine, I've got this, no problem, I didn't like him that much, I can find a different person, resistant. I'm okay with losing my job, I'm just gonna move on right away and throw myself away into finding another. Or, I'm sick now, but I'm gonna take as much medication as I can and I'll be better by next week and I'm fine. I don't need to rest and I don't need to think about it. So just fully resisting the experience we're having, not allowing ourselves to be sad or hurt or lost. And this can also take place on a societal level. Denying that our culture, that our society is suffering under a racist regime, under perpetual abuse to the climate and to nature. So this sense of like, that's not me, I'm not racist, I'm not bad, I don't pollute things, this isn't happening. First stage of denial, refusing to see what is actually there. On the side of our body, we use the right hand to help us lift up, to extend the right leg, draw the left leg in, with as little movement as possible, switching sides. So to arrive, using the left hand to guide the left thigh down, right elbow lands on the prop or not, might drape easily to the earth. Giving ourselves 3 breaths to arrive, tapping into the sensation on the left side. Readjusting so that the experience of the sensations is possible for the full 3 minutes. Might let the elbow bend behind the head, let the arm go slack. 3 breaths here. Softening into the pose, allowing the eyes to close. From our sense of denial can arise anger or aggression. Okay, maybe not just full out blatant screaming anger, but trying to take control aggressively of a situation. Like, if this person doesn't want to be with me, well then I don't want to be with them. And maybe I'm going to manipulate the conversation to change the dialogue so it works out in my way. And blame someone else, someone outside of myself for what's happening in my life, for why I'm feeling this loss or this grief, why I've lost my job, why is the planet like this? And this is someone else's fault, and the blame is off of me. You might go there in a more subtle way. The control is a bit more subtle. It's more about guilt with others. Why aren't you able to do the dishes more often? Or why aren't you helping me take out the trash instead of talking about the deeper issue that we don't belong together anymore? But we'll guilt someone else into this. We will control someone else through blame instead of sitting with grief, instead of inviting in loss, instead of fully embodying the life and the breadth of experiences that are here. Breathing into what that feels like and what that looks like. We've all been through these stages at some point or another. And they're documented and quite human. So it's not that we're weak or incapable for going through these phases. It's just that we are stronger and we are most definitely capable of rising above and changing the dialogue. There'll be a softening to the right side and opening to the left. Noticing any sensations or release as you breathe more fully into the left side of the body. 3 of your longest and slowest breaths. Let the left hand lift and allow this to bring you all the way back up to a seat. Using the hands to release the legs, give yourself a little shimmy. Finding your neutral blueprint, a safe and quiet home base. So our next pose is twisted roots, and I'll demo it for you first, and then I'll slide out of it because it would be on my back. Dramatic throw of all my props. We'll twist to the right first, so taking the bolster or a prop off to the right. And you can start with both soles of the feet on the mat, coming all the way down. And the twisting of the roots can be subtle, can be almost like eagle legs. So we'll cross the left leg over the right. Might be a pillow or two so that the knees are fully supported by the bolster. Take a moment to land. Create a long line of energy again on the left side from the armpit all the way to the hip crease. Envision a heavy rock in the pocket that allows the left hip to move towards the left edge of the mat and down. Let this melting or heaviness invite a reciprocal heaviness in the armpit, in the shoulder, in the jaw, in the ribs. Using this entire pose, both sides, to More softly exhale. As we explore the next phase, it's often bargaining. That point in the relationship where, like, no, don't go, I'll be who you want me to be, or I can still keep this job, I'll work harder. I won't eat sugar, I'll work out more. This collective sense of bargaining often takes place in our heads. It's an inherently desperate mood. We're almost ready to feel it, but not quite. But blocking our pain blocks our life. We have the ability to deepen, to discover who we are beyond this resistance. So in this pose, can you meet your edge and soften instead of tensing against it? In your own way, and with as little effort as you can, we'll unwind our legs, untwist our roots. Take a brief moment in a mini shavasana with legs and arms extended, just as brief as the fullness of a cycle of breath. And then rolling as we take our cups with us to the opposite side of the body. We'll cross the right leg over the left and allow the knees to rest, completely supported by the holster. Taking time to observe the inhale as it enters the right side of the body, all the way from the right hip to the right armpit, and back down. Again, feel a heaviness in the outer right hip as it softens towards the right edge of the mat. Let this sense of anchoring bring the whole right side closer to the earth. In traditional Chinese medicine, it looks at the seasons and our emotions as well. And grief is said to be autumn. Quite thinly veiled metaphor for the trees releasing their leaves and letting go. In this way, we mirror their pain and their grief with deeply satisfying exhales. Breaths in this pose. Just settle into this sensation. Moving the props under the knees, under the hips. Moving towards a deeply satisfying Shavasana. So there's nowhere left to go. There's nowhere left to be with your body on the floor, with the breath, somewhere just above the body. Let the legs relax, the thighs close down. Take one more contemplative inhale. And a full sigh to release.
and deeper still into the center of the self. body to rest. Still held softly in the earth. And the breath swelling as water just lightly above the sediment and the rocks. Engaging in this pose to fully embody the deepest capacity to surrender. To drop into the river of grief when it's necessary. To be present with the full heart and experience. Anger, denial, or pain, so that when you are ready to let go of the emotions and the circumstances, these pieces and parts of your life, or maybe even versions of yourself, are digested and ready to be released. That you carry within you the resilient capacity to change. And you can start here and on that. These simple gestures, the repetition of the ritual of this practice. As you begin to move the breath more fully into the body, and choosing something small, something possible to leave behind. The release of the breath, the release of the moment, the release of this hour. And as you roll to your right side, you're fully there in the moment, in the pose. The bridge between surrender and activation of your life. Space where you use your knowledge and your innate intuition to move into action. What will you take with you? And what will you leave? And with the strength of your conviction, of the hands, coming back up to a seat, and have the hands at the heart. Hands in prayer pose or Anjali Mudra. Sealing in